Yeah, where you come up.
Thanks, Rajesh. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. So, my name is Ashish Gakra. I'm founder of HR Shaper. You may be attending a lot of webinar, not only from HR Shaper, but by many other association and many other organization related to HR. So I will take another 2 to 3 minutes before I hand over to Rajesh from mHealth. Thank you all the speaker for joining. This is the Bangalore HR leader session on wellness and well-being. We are doing a road show. We did it for Delhi last month, and now after Bangalore we'll go to 4 other cities. So this is kind of road show we are doing. We may get on the road also, Rajesh. It's all depend upon Rajesh. Right now we are virtual. Thank you, but thank for supporting Rajesh. Rajesh is from mHealth. He is the CEO and founder. Recently, he got the funding. That's good news. Perhaps he will support us more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's slides moving. Yes, so HR Shaper is a 7 years old body. We have presence all over the world, not only in India. In India, each location, all over outside India also, all the location we do cover. We have more than 100, average 100 member in each and every location. We keep doing the webinar in their location as well. Some of the program we did it as a global webinar with Dave Ulrich, Jason Overbo, Shiv Khera, then CEO of Hogan. These are only the premium one I'm sharing. These are the four others webinar we did it. These are the last year. Yeah, when COVID started, we did employee engagement series in association with Zozode, and almost 30-40 speaker were covered, and they did share when actually it was started. So that was really the good one, attended by more than 1,000 people from all over the world. Yeah, so this is the important one which happened last year. It's happening now also. Just next week, I will share the detail in the chat box also. This is the awareness session of HRMS and SCM application. I'm getting almost 20 vendor under one platform. They will share, their uh, I would call it, the solution what they have, because most of us in HR community is still going for a digitalization. Many of us already gone for HRMS, but still 50% of the population in the community is still looking for good HRMS. So this may be the good opportunity for all of you to attend. Those who are looking for. HR Shepherd did another series which is kind of new normal of HR conferences. So this was the thing. HR Shepherd World Tour is also happening from the next week. We will go to Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa region. Almost will cover 20 to 25 countries. This happened just last week. So this was attended by more than 200 delegates. Session was really good. The topic was future of the office. Uh, Okay, so I come to the main thing. So thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Rajesh Manjul from mHealth to support this. This was the daily session. We did it, attended by more than 100 delegates. Now we are here to Bangalore, and so let me share the format. Now there are two panel discussion. First panel discussion 3 to 4. We already started. The second one will happen 4 to 5. First session will be moderated by me. Second session will be moderated by Agustis Azaria from IBM. Uh, and when he join, obviously he will share what the format is going to be. But let me share what the format will be for the first session. Thank you, Rani, Saurabh, Grace, Aparna, Rajesh. Taking out your time, who will be sharing the knowledge, insight, the views on very burning topic, which is wellness and well-being. Right? The topic, the name sounds only this much, but it has lot to said and lot to share. And it's not only limited to the corporate, but it is beyond. We talk about the family, we talk about the social, we talk about the society, because this is directly related with the self as well. Unless you are not well, you can't do anything, whether at home or at office. So let me introduce the speaker. I will not read the entire profile, but yes, Rani Beleppa, Associate Partner, Head, L&D and HRBP, joining from KPMG Global Services. Saurabh Nigam, VPHR, Omdiyar Network India, Grace Sampson, VPHR Informatica India, Aparna C, VPHR Techna Medical Private Health, which is being just, she's mentioned, acquired by pharmacy, right? Sorry, I did,
Farm Easy.
Farmi. Sorry, I read the name wrongly. And Rajesh Manjul, who is the supporter of the session. He's the CEO and founder of mHealth. Okay, so format is we have almost 50 minutes now in hand before I hand over to Rajesh just to talk about the mHealth. Uh, each speaker will share their opening remark in 2 to 3 minutes, and there will be a round of question and answer session. And then, in case we have time left out, then we will pick up some question from the chat box. Uh, Request to all delegates: keep engaging our speaker. Okay, when they are not speaking, keep sharing your views. Keep posting question in case you want to direct to anybody during this 50 minutes, and feel free to write down your views in the chat box. Request to all speaker. It's not only limited that we get a time to connect, but through the chat box also we can interact. Great, Rajesh, over to you now, and then I will start the actual panel discussion. You have exactly 1 to 2 minutes.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to partner with HR Shapers. And as you said, this is our complete series, 6 city series. Basically, we are in the second city now. We started with Delhi and then moved to Bangalore. Then Rome.
Rajesh, were you saying something?
Am I audible?
Now you are audible. We lost you in between.
Okay. So thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to partner with HR Shapers. As you said that this is our second event. Basically, we have first was in Delhi, which was attended by almost 150 odd people from the HR fraternity, and this was this is something basically started now in Bangalore, and then we moved to Bombay and other cities. About me, I have been in the corporate life for more than 20 plus years, being a tech guy, and then moved into business operation, and then started this venture last year when the pandemic hit. I was heading business for an organization. I have understood one thing being in the corporate life, right? So employee well-being is something basically which was the last kind of apart from the insurance which we take as a group insurance which we take, that was something basically more towards the wellness camps, doing the health checkups and all those kind of a thing which are happening. In last 18 months, this entire things of well-being or the meaning of well-being has actually changed, right? We are more towards now taking care of employees, not only employees, also their family, because that employee is somewhere impacted with because of that whatever is happening at the family front. And also taking care of not only one thing which is physical, also emotional, also financial, because we have seen all 360-degree changes basically because of this thing. And we have worked out on a solution, basically, how can we personalize it? How can we make sure that the employee, while being in a community of other people, how can they actually work together and also work on their personal thing so that they can achieve their health goal and the fitness goal, right? Because we have seen very, very young guys basically who has got into severe chronic diseases and all, right? So mHealth actually helps in solving some of the critical problem in community-based wellness program. We have a platform. I'll give little detail about that. We have a platform when we can bring all the people of one company into one platform, customize those programs which are required for that corporates. People can choose from the various programs which are customized for that organization, and then engage and basis on health goal and engagement, we are able to do and work on that and be able to solve that problem. Apart from these basics which are doc on a call or diagnostic or other services which are definitely part of it, must is basically with the engagement of the employees, and also able to see the productivity and efficacy of those programs. So that is what mHealth actually brings. We have integrated with some of the devices wherein that we can give a health dashboard of the organization. Suppose what is happening today is that you have diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, and those things. You actually get to know about the demography of employees basically in this organization. These are the people who are moving either towards diabetes or having lipid profile issues, or maybe having hypertension issues and all those kind of things, so that you can take a proactive action and should be able to recover from and help employees actually to recover from that condition, and then that helps in solving some of the problems. So these are the few things basically which we do, and here as it I'll be sharing some of the inputs basically which we got in last 18 months, how this entire things are changing, and look forward to learning and engaging session with all of you. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you, Rajesh. So you made my job easy. Actually, I wanted to talk on some of the things which you covered in a way. How the application, how the platform is actually needed by the industries, for the people, for the workforce, for the employee, right? So I will not spend much time, but in between I will keep giving some gyan and bites. Okay. So let's start. We have good diversity in the panel, right? Okay. So I will go other way around, and we'll start gentlemen to start, right? So again, I'm saying format opening remark by each speaker, maximum for 2 to 3 minutes on the topic. Then there'll be a Q&A round session, right? So let me start with Saurabh. Yeah,
Thank you.
Saurabh.
Thanks, Ashish. Thanks, Rajesh. Good afternoon, everyone. It's absolute honor to be here talking on this very, very relevant and important subject of mental well-being. So my opening remarks, so to say, the opening remarks, so to say, would be as follows, right? I mean, to say that mental well-being is super important or super critical, I do believe that it would be like saying the obvious, right? I mean, there's no two ways about it. What last 18 months have done, the extraordinary times that we have been in because of the pandemic. If there is one silver lining, if I may say so, I mean, given how tough it has been for everyone, if there's one silver lining which has been there which to me has come out in the last 18 months, is that the realization that in the minds of people that taking care of your own self perhaps is the most important thing. Everything else comes after that, right? So you can't possibly do anything right, whether it is professionally or personally, if you are not at the pink of your health, right? And the second aspect of that is that health comprises of two things: physical and mental, right? And I think that realization I see across board in organizations, in teams, in individuals, in leaders, managers coming across, because what last 18 months have done is that either you or your immediate family members unfortunately have been hit by the pandemic, and which basically tells you that physical health is important. Even if you're not, right, there has been a lot of stress and strain which has come in, and I'm sure each one of us who's part of this call or this session have gone through our share of stress in last 18 months, simply because a friend or a friend's family member is going through tough times, right? And it's been so close for all of us. Add on top of that is all the news which have been floating around. I personally stopped listening to news long time back, but it just doesn't help, right? So the fact of the matter is that because of the way things have shaped out in last 18 months, this realization has dawned in everybody, or I would say in majority of individuals, that taking care of your own self is very, very important, right? Which then has brought in this entire thing around mental well-being, right? That your health, it does not just comprise of, okay, I'm fine, physically, doesn't I don't have fever, I'm not breathless, I don't have breathlessness, I don't have diabetes, so I'm doing fine. It's actually way beyond that, right? And there've been so many cases. I mean, if I were to give you an example of a portfolio organization we were working with last year, a very small organization, 40-member organization, and when we went in and said, hey, how's your team doing? This was around October, November last year, 2020. They said, yeah, everybody's fine. We're doing fine. We're all working remotely. Everybody seems to be engaged on calls. I said, great. So let's do a dipstick. Let's do a dipstick. Just 2 questions or 3 questions. Very simple, straightforward questions we ask people. And we were surprised that out of those 40 people, 4 individuals said that we are struggling with our mental health issues, right? That's 10% of the organization, right? And in the organization, the leaders were shocked. They're like, what happened? We never got to know. So the virtual world or the virtual working, what that has now, I'm going to the negative now, right? The fact of the matter is that it has brought mental well-being on the forefront. But what it has done, or what has become really difficult, is because we are not meeting face to face, right? I mean, I would have loved to do the session in person with everybody, but we are not meeting face to face. Right now, there are 45 odd people on this call. Only 5 are visible on video, and then video you can only make as much on a video, right? So how do I even ascertain, right? I mean, I'm a student of behavior science. How do I even ascertain that there might be something wrong with an individual, right? I can't even pick up cues, right? And that makes it even more difficult for a practitioner, for an HR practitioner, for a leader, that, hey, we know that there are mental health issues. We know that people are under stress, but there are very little avenues, very less avenues, and we got to be very, very innovative in our approach to figure out, unearth, make people, understand, trust us that it's okay to surface those issues, right? So to me, really, the opening comment, if I were to make, is that it's the mental health and mental well-being is taken center stage, which is great, but we need to figure out ways and means of tackling those, especially in the world we are living in. And I'm pretty sure that I don't think we ever gonna go back to the business as usual of pre-COVID days. So hybrid is the mantra, is what we are hearing from everywhere. Nobody knows what exactly the post-COVID world would look like. But to me, the biggest challenge in my mind as a HR practitioner or people practitioner is that how do we evolve as leaders, as people practitioners, to be able to figure out, unearth mental health issues in our people, in our teams, and then figure out solutions around it. That's my opening comment.
Thanks, Saurabh. Yes, so it's gone beyond self, and we started working for more than 14 hours even, right? Whether we were working for 14 hours, we don't know earlier, but yes, it's debatable point now. A lot of awareness is being created. Leadership started thinking about it, implemented, and that's how many things came up during the COVID. Great. So now difficult to say whom should I go now. Now let me pick up as per the screen. I can see Grace next to Saurabh. So Grace, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashish. Indeed, an absolute pleasure. And, it's great and to actually, see and get to know my fellow panelists as well. So directly jumping into the topic, right? I think all of us have almost the same story to really talk about, right? The pandemic and wellness, right? And like we say, if we want to enjoy the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain, right? And that's really in the Bangalore context right now because it's raining heavily. But likewise, I think, if we need wellness, then we got to really focus on well-being, right? And of course, as opening comments, I really want to place forward this whole second wave of the pandemic, right? Earlier it was a nice to have well-being benefits kind of agenda for corporates, but the second wave really moved things faster, picked up pace for organizations. And really, because the earlier mindset for all organizations, most of us also, was wellness can be bought with money, right? But then when you looked at wave two, we realized the rich were chasing, grappling to get an oxygen cylinder. That's when it hit organizations, employees, individuals, human beings in general, to say wellness truly means not just financial wellness, and every other aspect of wellness can be bought. But I think wellness in the true sense means that, caring, engagement, proactively reaching out to our employees. I think that's the biggest lesson this pandemic has taught most organizations, I would say, where we are trying to redefine wellness. Earlier, it was a tick in the box to say, yes, these are essentials like your insurance and various other interventions. But then we've gone beyond the family, beyond essentials, and said, what makes the biggest impact? Because employee wellness suddenly we've realized that it has direct correlation to productivity and organization sustaining itself. And you know, if we have to sustain and be in the business, then we got to have uh, you know, productivity at its highest, which means you know, our employees need to be absolutely well emotionally, physically, financially, yes, but I think most of the time employed individuals are kind of financially doing pretty decently well, I would say. But the focus really is on physical and emotional wellness. And that's really where currently most of the organizations are picking up pace rapidly to see how can I make a difference to the employee? How can I ease the ecosystem when it comes to wellness so my employee is able to absolutely focus on productivity? And when you have happy, healthy employees, you know, that's the biggest asset for any organization in the current scenario. The last point really is talking about employee retention, etc., also means, you know, these days employees are prioritizing, rather reprioritizing health, wellness benefits against everything else. It's not so much about just the compensation that they're pocketing or the money that hits their bank accounts, but I think it is about what else does the organization do to give me flexibility, to help me stay closer to home, to reach out to my family, to help me feel comfortable, safe, so I can focus on my core job. I think that's really what I want to leave all of you with as my starting remarks. So back to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Grace. So you talk about the family and the biggest example worldwide, employing employer included family also for the part of the vaccination drive. It's not only the employee, but yes, I want to include, you know, family also and make them it part of it. Nobody was thinking about the money that particular time of this. We got to know what is the meaning of how are you, and we actually mean to say, we actually mean to ask. True. Thank you, Grace. As for the screen, I go to Rani here now.
Thank you, Ashish. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to meet you all virtually. It's unfortunate that we have to still stay virtually connected. Yeah. But nevertheless, I think just a prelude, a little bit of prelude to, in my own sense of how I would like to kind of start this is, while wellness is a state of living, which is all put together, right? Our mental, physical, social aspects put together, and wellness only increases or enhances the well-being, right? In my view, this was always there. I think the topic or just the state has taken so much, of traction. We've built traction around it. It's become the discussion point. It's become a prerogative of every corporate to ensure. It's not that we lost focus, but I think the pandemic has kind of accelerated this. Now, it's unfortunate in the last 20 months, all of us are living, it's become life of ambiguity, life of fear, life of uncertainty. Right? And human beings, I think, are very, very social. And that aspect of not really interacting, right? For example, I'm saying, for some hypothetically, let's just put the pandemic didn't exist, right? We still had all of these issues, but at least we could meet people whom we wanted to chat, get their perspective. We figured out our own sounding boards to talk to. And that very fact of somebody, another human being with emotions is listening to you was very, very comforting. So and I would like to draw one point here is, while the responsibility of having or maintaining a well-being really rests within us, and all the other factors that organizations, corporates do are only enablers, right? We can have policies, we can really talk to people, we can create this COVID task force, really to Grace's point, on help people getting those oxygen cylinders, come up with multiple flexi options to ensure our colleagues and their families are kind of, are taken care, or give them, strike a balance, how many hours they really work, so that there is some amount of time that they can focus, whether near and dear are going through this, or just enduring the fact that they have lost their near. All of these are enablers. So my first point that I would like to call out is self-awareness is the key to one's own well-being. And all problems in life are actually attributed to four things. One is health, one is finance, relationship, and career, right? This is actually the crux of human, whether we call it problems, challenges, disaster, whatever we call it, right? You can call it whatever. And unfortunately, I think in the last 20 months, we've all really been grappling with health. Health is taken the center of human race, right? Where we lost people, we've seen people suffering, the infrastructure has not been good. So two things. One is, minus the pandemic, and I'm very positive with conviction, I would say we will all come together. We fought this long. We will fight it in the next few months. Life is getting back to normalcy. World is coming back to normalcy. We realize that people are definitely our assets in some form. We need people. For people to succeed, we need people. While all of that happens, self-awareness is the key. And it is one's responsibility to take charge, to be accountable to our own well-being. So that's the point I would really like to drive home today.
Thank you, Rani. So I would like to start with, you said, okay, it was already there, very debatable point. But yes, now there are too many solutions of wellness and well-being. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So many things already there, but maybe solution were not there. People were not talking about it. Now we are talking about it, right? Great point. Yeah, and then yes, you said who's the responsible. It start from you, none other than, right? Okay. So Aparna, I know desperately you are waiting for opening remark. Over to you. Thank you so much. You like to unmute yourself?
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Rajesh. Hi, Grace. Hi, Rani. Hi, sir. I think it's fantastic. I would say hello to all my fellow panelists and to all the folks who have joined in as well. Thank you so much for joining us in. All I can say is I think I come with both HR as well as business experience to the table. To highlight, what business experience prior to joining Acna Medical, I was a part of a geriatric organization where I ran business operations and business development, primarily, looking after the health and wellness of elders, healthy elders. So I do come with that kind of experience. And let me tell you, when the pandemic hit us, yes, we were all taken aback. Initially, first 2 weeks, I'm being very open and straightforward. First 1-2 weeks, we also didn't know what to do, right? None of us knew what to do last year. I think March 23rd is when we got hit. We said, okay, it's there. What is it all about? None of us had a clue what to do, what not to do. What were the symptoms? None of us had any clue on how to go about it, right? And since I was dealing with all elders, I had 300 elders under my belt. I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of responsibility, right? For you as an individual when you're managing retirement communities. I think that's where it started. And I think the first thing that we all did was, one, how can we be more positive, right? It's very easy to say, oh, this is happening, that's happening, we're not supposed to do this. But I think somewhere I said, one, yeah, I'm a very positive person as well. I'm sure Ashish will agree, and, Ranjit and all of them who are here who know me well will say, yes, that's what I am. But I think what I personally took it on myself is to how do I communicate? What do I communicate to my elders who are with me, right? Be it their family as well. So I think that's primarily what we did. Is I still remember we came up with a process to see, one, basically it was just fever and all of that, right? How do we even make sure our elders are well within the community, but at the same time, just because we're not letting them go out anywhere, how do you take care of just their well-being? When I say well-being, it's not just physical, it's even emotional, the mental. So we did have, physiotherapy exercises. We came up with a lot of stuff for elders. Very, very different, right? The audience is so different. It's not like you see, they can't go out anywhere. We brought in so much of restrictions, right? The first pandemic, there was only restrictions. There was nothing else. So yeah, I think those were some things that we did. We said, all right, what are some things that we are going to watch out for and how do we do it? And I think for 4 months, we monitored all the residents' temperature, their blood pressure, the everyday basis, right? That except for diabetes, unless you're a diabetic patient, then we would do it once a week to just make sure your diabetes is well under control and stuff like that. But otherwise, we monitored everybody's and we actually kept the data on. So we would watch for symptoms, right? So that's what we did in the very first wave that hit us. And then the second wave is when I joined Acna Medical. I did join exactly April 20th, and I think post that was the second wave. So obviously, because one, I did come from a healthcare experience, and joining, I think, a pharma company obviously helped. It's just that you come in, with the healthcare background as well. So all I can say is I didn't trust the newspapers or the televisions were telling me what is happening. I trusted the doctors that I knew and with whom I had built relationship. That gave me an evidence like what is happening, how much are they kind of, actually getting stressed on. It's not just us, right? We are all at home. But imagine the healthcare workers. Now, because I come from there, I was able to empathize with a whole lot of community. And I must say, hats off to the doctors, to the healthcare workers. Not just that, in my current organization, I do have my folks who go deliver, right, medicines to the hospitals. Hats off to them as well. Without them, we wouldn't have even survived this. So all of that, right? Having had, I would say I have a lot of gratitude to a lot of people. And that's one thing that I would say it's good to do that. I think the second pandemic also, I think somewhere it said, what can we do, right? As human beings, as individuals, how can we help folks? And I think I did my bit to the society where at least I must have got 15 to 20 people, oxygen beds and ventilators, as and when people reached out to me. Did they need anything else? Yeah. So I don't want to, go down that path. Yes, I've done whatever I could. I think in all of this, the one thing that I actually made a difference is I have actually reached out to most of my connects, be it a WhatsApp message or call them, right? To just ask, how are they doing? Especially during that lockdown and all of it, just to call and say, hey, are you okay? How are you doing? Is there anything that I can help you with? I'm around. So what if we can't meet virtually? We're just a phone call away. So these are some things that I did. And I would say that's the same thing that we bring to the workplace as well. Especially during the second pandemic, we were all in office. Some of us used to come every day to work. When we started getting reports like, someone's not well and all, so we formed a committee where 1, 3, 7, 9, 11, those were the days that we would reach out to our employees who are not feeling well to find out how they're doing, not just them, but their families and everybody. And if they needed any other help that we could give them. I think it was more from a mental support that I would stress. And I think it's very important from the pandemic standpoint that it's good to have a positive attitude, right? And end of the day, I can say if you're mentally strong, you're won 90% of the game. So I would say, let's bring that to the place that we are in.
Yes. Great point, Aparna. Yes, I'm picking up. I think employee may be knowing what is the hotline number of the organization now. They may not be knowing. They were never used to know this, right? Another things you did share about the message. You started sending message. Now everybody is getting a message which is more personalized. I hope you're taking well. I hope you're doing well. So suddenly, there is a difference in the thought process. we never thought that hospital will come to the home, right? Because of the pandemic and all, right? Another, on the lighter note, now we are following up with the insurance agencies for the renewal, and renewal of the employee became very much important, which is obviously part of the wellness and well-being and all, right? Most of the organization, you must have noticed, they have brought the ambulance on their own. Hey guys, I have ambulance, don't worry, don't depend upon anyone else. Doctor on F suddenly started booming up, right? So it's created a new business and all. I'm hope all of you must agree. Rajesh, quickly you like to touch upon few points, not because you most of the point you covered in the beginning as well. Then I will start the Q&A session. Uh, you are on mute.
Sorry. So I think very, very relevant points everybody has picked up and very categorically said that the biggest thing basically, who is responsible for the health or who is responsible for the fitness? We ourselves are the responsible, or the employee himself is responsible. First of all, that he has to make sure that he is thinking about it. Then the employee well-being program can be successful. And to make him realize that that boss, how your health is important, not for you, for your family and all around, right? It's something basically which is very, very critical. And with this, I think doing all these things what we have seen in last 16, 18 months, and primarily we call it as preventive care. I think we as a country has never had that so-called preventive care at the large level, right? While corporate well-being and other things have been there, preventive is very, very small portion basically, which people generally do. And once they do it also, then the getting the doctor checkup and other things are also this thing. So I think there is a huge opportunity from the employee well-being point of view, wherein that we can realize employees. That was, you have seen last 18 months, you know that what is that the importance of the health of your personally, and then how this can really have an impact on your family and around, right? And definitely if you touch upon those things and then you make sort of kind of things which can really transform him, that is something basically which can be a win for both as organization as well as individual employees. So I think that's what I would like to say in this as of now.
Thanks, Rajesh. Yes, so I would like to start second round, which is more of Q&A. So the question will go to two panelists from here. So in the first, it will go to Grace and Saurabh. So my question is, why suddenly it became so much of importance, right? We did touch upon, all the panelists touch upon. Okay, was there any need? What it was not there? Is it going to be there more in future, or maybe at the reasonable level it will be there? So why suddenly it became more important? Please touch upon little bit way forward in future as well. Grace, you like to go?
Sure, I can go. Thank you. So I think why has it suddenly taken center stage, right? And like Rani said, it was always there, but then why it well-being has suddenly taken center stage is because of the massive impact, right? We've always been in do or die situations in the pandemic, right? And organizations have realized that the whole control factor in terms of things are in my control from an employee well-being standpoint was losing out completely, because we don't know when who will be hit, right? Which again automatically correlates to employee output, productivity, and then your project deliverables, and of course sustaining revenues, and of course therefore existing as an organization, right? And why now than ever before is also because all of these things happened so sudden, right? We've been all in umpty number of panel conversations and discussions for many, many years now, but nobody could really predict this pandemic so accurately ever. We talked about various flowery things about future of workforce, etc. But what we are talking now is not something even I spoke about in panel discussions 5 years ago. And why? Because it is sudden. And of course, it kind of interrupted business continuity, right? And not all of us had a replication of skills in the organization. Grace is the only head of HR at Informatica. So if I had to make certain crucial decisions, there wasn't a replica who could do that for me. So, we realized the dependency on our employees is what really helps us sustain in the organization. And I think that's really why organizations suddenly shook up. And let me give you an example of Informatica itself without picking names, right? We've had, during the wave two, we've had employees, their families, managers, upline managers, business leaders, all in one chain get impacted at the same time, right? And we were in situations where we had to engage with our clients and say, these deliverables are going to take a little longer because of the impact, right? And therefore, wellness always is a very proactive approach, right? And that's what organizations started realizing, because of which we started measuring ROI, we started measuring impact. In fact, there were multiple wellness initiatives that Informatica, for example, extends to its employees. But what we also did was started looking at what were the most impactful ones. Because end of the day, employees also started realizing that they need to be vocal about, the ask. Like, we discussed earlier, whether it is emotional issues, whether it's families grappling with other issues, or for example, a very classic example I can give you is 80% of our workforce is a very young workforce, out of college, not married, settled in life, and therefore living in PGs. And so for them, that emotional impact, because of the lockdown, there is no food, they can't talk to people, they can't get out of the hostel. It was, the PG, and of course, plus getting infected, all of this really created a lot of vulnerability, right? And we know that if we do not proactively make wellness center of our being, then organizations really are going to lose out on talent, and it will obviously have a ripple effect on other things. So that's my bit, and I'll hand it over to Saurabh.
Thank you, Grace. And you pretty much covered everything. I'll possibly add two more points to what you said, and might just be repeating those as well. I do believe, the realization that people are the core of, moving the organization forward has come in, right? I mean, one of the silver linings, as I was telling you, right? But I think more importantly, what people have understood, and or rather, I would say, the bulk of organizations have realized and understood over a period of time, is that it's one thing to create a good, solid, strong team, right? It's another thing to keep them together, right? So keeping your flock together, I think that has been one of the biggest learnings which this pandemic has thrown at us. That, hey, you've got a great team in place, we've achieved great things, we're going through some really extraordinary times, right? As Grace said, nobody has an idea in terms of when it's going to end. What are the solutions we should be looking at? Everybody's trying to figure it out. And that basically, I fundamentally believe that when you're working under constraints, it leads to innovation. And we're seeing innovations coming around in the space of well-being as well, wellness as well, right? So the fact that you need to keep your flock together, and the importance and criticality of that has never been more accentuated than it has been now, right? So, if, and a lot of organizations have experienced that, people missing out, or not being there, either because of their own health issues or within family, and the kind of impact it creates on the organization. It's talked about productivity and so on and so forth. So I think the realization is dawned. I fundamentally believe, or firmly believe, that it is here to stay. There is no question about it. How we look at our teams, what we do for them, how we keep them together, best of spirits and health. is going to be an ongoing theme, and we continuously continuously see innovation happening much more than what we've seen in last so many years. That's an absolute given. Second, I would say, which I think Grace also talked about, is that a lot of organizations are also realizing that as we are moving in this journey in these extraordinary times, it is almost becoming a question on your credibility as an organization in terms of how or what you're doing for your people, right? So whether it was stocking up oxygen cylinders or oxygen concentrators for your employees, or helping them with health insurances, or last year there were COVID specific insurance policies which came out in market. As I said, nobody knew, which are the things to pick up and which are the things not to pick up. But slowly we are moving into a stage wherein these are becoming hygiene, or they've already become hygiene, right? So if you're not doing things to take care of your team's health, you are missing out on an opportunity, or you're missing out on creating a credible organization out there in the market, right? So that's the other reason I do believe that it is here to stay. There is no denying that fact. That's it.
And of course, Ashish, if I can just add one last point, if you look at a comparison of the before and after COVID kind of wellness interventions, most of it now is trending towards an agile approach, right? You asked and we did, right? A need-based approach, and not just to say Grace woke up with 5 great wellness ideas and therefore she's going to roll all of these out because they are cost effective, etc. But I think organizations have started building this appetite towards what is the need of the hour, how do you really foresee wellness, how do we redefine wellness based on what our employees, our managers and people have to say, and based on ask, I think that's the approach most organizations are taking, and which is the right thing to do.
Great. I don't know whether it came on the right time, okay, why it is so important or not, but suddenly it is related to your own. As like Rani is focusing, keep saying, okay, it's self who has to take care. Thank you, Saurabh and Grace. Looking at the timing, I don't think so we will have question, but request delegate to ask the question to Saurabh and Grace in chat box till 4 o'clock because they might log off. We have another session, 4 p.m. second panel. Aparna and Rani, so here is question to both of you that fine, why it became so much of important. Now it is important. What are the activity you like to share, which is being implemented either by your organization, you like to share some industry practices and all. Can I request Rani to share the views?
Sure, Ashish. So I think Grace and Saurabh did cover a few, right? I'm sure all organizations have come forward to put the basic things, or I mean, probably now in our context, we can refer it to as basic, right? Whether we're talking about enhancing the insurance policies, COVID policies for the employees to take. And even before COVID, I always would like to refer to this, right? As KPMG is an organization which is highly people-centric, we kind of enabled a lot of wellness initiatives also because people during busy season, which means the tax season, the audit season, people work for about 18 hours a day. So many things were made available to them. Simple things like, half an hour of blackout time, right? Where you can actually spend time with family or 45 minutes, whatever businesses decided that. Enabling them with a lot of course, sessions like, primarily to get their posture right and things like that, right? So all of this was happening. But I think when kind of COVID really, this catastrophe hit us, right? What really came out is how selflessly people volunteered to help someone whom they really didn't know, right? Our employees were spread across India, right? So you really don't know, but you're fighting for that oxygen cylinder sitting here for a colleague whom you have not interacted, right? And not even just for the colleague, for colleague's family member whom you don't know. So that thing of standing for humanity, right? So many task force were formed, many volunteers, right? From partners to the guy who has just passed out of college and who has joined KPMG, right? So that those kind of things really stood out. The second thing is we also partnered with many self-help organizations where a lot of counseling was provided for families, and really the data was in a day about 1,000 employees would reach out. The analytics pulled up. That means we can really understand what kind of mental trauma people went through in the world of anxiety. The third thing is, and recently we tied up with this live, love, and laugh, Deepika Padukone's, where she's really kind of with Anna Chandy, who runs the NGO for her. And we asked her to come and address some of our leaders, the questions that kept coming. And what I really kind of assimilate out of this is everyone is going through some kind of a challenge, right? So very candidly, people started to ask, how do I deal with things like this? So enabling them for a sense of comfort is also organization's responsibility to say, don't worry, we are all with you. So a list of things that we did: counseling, insurance policies, reaching out to families who succumb to COVID, right? What can we do? Employee is just not your last point. Beyond that, you have a family who's also your brand, who's talking for KPMG. So what could we do for employees who succumb to COVID? We are still in touch. We're looking at what different ways we can kind of see if at some point families or employees who kind of succumb to COVID, if we can kind of employ their spouse, their siblings, how much of financial support can we give with employees who've got small children. So multiple things that we really looked out, and our support just doesn't stop at employee. It goes beyond, because employees' families also are in some form our employees, because without their support, they can't succeed, and without our employees, we will not be able to succeed. So multiple initiatives, and these are the things that I would like to really kind of, and of course, the numerous vaccination drives. We want to ensure that before we get back in a hybrid model by Jan, at least 80-85% of our employees are vaccinated. So again, the volunteers who stood up to kind of do this flawlessly, yeah. And I'm sure a lot of organizations are going through, but I think the sheer sense of giving them the comfort that we are all in it, so speak up. So that is what helplessly, selflessly, people coming to help people across India. So that's the second. And that is about creating that ecosystem to say, come together. Yeah, we are a family to, so those are some of the things I think I would really like to call out what we've done. Other than I'm not really getting into the BAU at all, what every organization we have also done. But I think just the sheer sense of comfort and to kind of put our people in the heart of everything we do. Yeah. And even KPMG offices worldwide reaching out to India to say what kind of support they need, right? Monetary is of course a given, but other than that, what? So I think these are something that we can really proudly vouch for an organization like KPMG.
Thanks, Rani. So I go to Aparna here. Aparna, some challenge for you. Last 5 minutes. I want to keep 1 or 2 minutes for a closing remark. So over to you.
So I think the first thing that we did was have a panel of doctors, right? Because what we realized is getting doctors to even see you if you're not well was what we realized was a challenge. And because we are in the pharma space, it was, I think, a little bit easier. And we just managed to get, a couple of doctors online. And we said, anybody, it's not just for the employees, but for the entire family. If any given time, just reach out and we will help you to schedule an appointment, and we could take it forward from there. So I think that's the first thing that we did then, and they continue to be with us, right, irrespective whether we have COVID now or not. And then the other thing that we did was we started looking at how can we have counselors talking to people. We arranged conversations, right? It was not something that we would force employees to take a look at, but saying, hey, they're there if you want to have a conversation, right? Those are some things. And I think apart from that, because we have all been coming to work from June, right? Most of us, at least 80%, or I would say 90% of the employees started coming back to work in June itself. So what we did was, one, we made sure all our employees were vaccinated, both, not just one shot, but both the shots were done. I think that's something that we did. Two, we started saying, how can we, now that we have come back after more than a year, some of them were coming back to office after a year, but if you're in the non-tech roles, you're almost there every day. So what we started doing is, maybe every Friday we started having a little bit of activity. We did, yoga and stuff like that, right? So those were some things that we did. While I'm sure all of those we used to look at more as a good to have, but I think today it's a must. I think that's what we did. Apart from that, I think what we also started doing is now, especially in the current October month, is a breast cancer awareness program. So we do have 2 doctors coming in to talk about, and this is gender agnostic. We have not made it only for women, because I know there's a myth that breast cancer is more for women, but sorry, no, it's gender agnostic. So we do have a doctor coming in who is not only going to talk about it, but also will help every employee to look at how can you self-examine, right? I think that's primarily the key, because one, COVID is not there today. The number of cases is dropped. Let's look, but there are others that we need to address. So these are some things that we continue to do. And I think being in the pharma space gives you that advantage, right? You have the access. So yeah, I think that way, lucky to be here at the right time. So yes, that's what, there is so much more, but I'm sure we are running short of time. So thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Rajesh.
Second panel yet to start. So we still have 2 minutes. So I want to invest, in a beautiful way. So I want closing remark from each one of you. One point I just like to add, and if you can add in the closing remark, see, travel time being reduced. People are not traveling from one country to another, one city to another, and all. Within the city, travel time being reduced. We are spending more time with the family. Doing all this, considering all this, we are still talking about wellness and well-being. Before COVID, we were thinking about all this point. If we get time, if we reduce the time, then we will be well. But I think, it's a different. So human expectation is, there is no end actually. That's what I can say. I want closing remark from each one of you. Rajesh, I'm sorry because we need to start second panel. You are anyway there in that. So I want closing remark. Start from Rajesh, then perhaps, we'll follow the sequence.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ashish. I think one thing which I would like to say is that wellness, well-being has to move from transactional to a normal way of life. I think that is very, very important and critical for any organization, as we have seen this pandemic. I think it has to move from the transactional one now to become a part of the process as we do other things, as you're making an employees making an attendance in the organization. Similarly, wellness also has to be something which is kind of a daily activity, daily kind of a thing which has to happen. And that will somewhere basically, which will, rather we were talking about once we were talking about that, what are the prerequisites in the organization, whether the office is good, you have food and everything in the office, right? And we all have been talking about that, how the environment is. Now, I think wellness is also part of this. That's something basically which everybody is looking at, that how you are taking care of, or the organization are taking care of their employees. That will become one of the criteria for them as well as for their family. And one last thing I think which I would like to say, when the employee is coming to the organization, and health of the organization, right, is very, very important, because you have to have something basically which can tell you that, okay, I have these many employees. Out of these many are prone to diabetes, right? Prone to maybe lipid profile issues, maybe having some severe other things, and we can make that correction happen. And there are, as we said, that this challenges have given us the opportunity, and there are devices. So I have one in my hand, which is this one, which calculate almost 7 odd tests on a single this thing. And this is something basically, and I have another one, which is the cardio. ECG can be done in 30 seconds. So these are kind of innovation which has happened in last 16, 18 months, wherein that within 30 seconds, the person sitting at home or office, we can do an ECG and we can give that, okay, out of 1,000 employees, how many people may have a cardio issue, or how many people have diabetes issue. Sort of that kind of things are happening now. And this definitely help in saving cost as well as insurance cost and the other thing. That's the benefit basically which actually brings in.
Thanks, Rajesh. Can I go to Aparna quickly, closing remark?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Ashish. I think this is all I can say is, hey, pandemic is over. There's a lot more to be done now. And all I can say is, yeah, we're slowly getting back to normal. So let's see what more. I would say, all I can say is pandemic has taught us that, look now and see how you can act on your feet, actually think on your feet. So not even act on your, think on your feet and act. So yeah, and let's bring, I would only say, I think the positivity helps. And not just as human being, but I think as HR as well, it makes a lot of difference when we bring in the positivity. And I must say, yeah, thanks to having close friends as doctors, it does give me a different insight of what is actually happening on at various levels. So that helps. That definitely helps. So
Rani,
thank you, Ashish.
yeah.
And thank you, everyone. And it was nice virtually meeting Grace, Rani, and all of you. Saurabh is not here. So yes, thank you so much.
Rani, over to you.
Yeah, very simple. And all that I would say is well-being is not employer's agenda. Employer can only be enablers, right? It is each one of our responsibility to take charge of our well-being, which means take charge of our mental, physical, spiritual, and moral aspects of life so that we can strike a balance and kind of maintain a well-being for ourselves. So it's each one of our responsibility. That's my call out for the day. And thanks, Ashish, and everyone for giving us this opportunity to talk and interact. Bye.
Thanks, Rani, Aparna. Grace?
Thank you, Ashish. I think final comments really around wellness, well-being is organizations and employees to be flexible about it, right? Wean away the old and bring in the new. Get creative about it. I think that's how you can optimize, all of the well-being interventions. And of course, constantly having that ear to the ground to say, depending on the need, we are going to really work towards solutions because that's the only best way to do it and not really otherwise. And lastly, I would definitely say making wellness very infectious in the organization. You don't need to hard sell it, right? Make it fun, make it creative, make it so infectious that people automatically want to get there and be well, not just themselves, but their families as well. That's really from me and a wrap. Really, thank you, Ashish, and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Grace. Thanks, first panel. Grace, Aparna, Rani, Saurabh logged out. Thanks, Saurabh. And yes, we are starting second panel. There are a lot of takeaway from first, but so here is a second panel. I like to share the screen, introduce them, and then we'll hand over to moderator of the second panel. Okay. So let me start with yes. So we have another four panelists. They are from a different industries. So aerospace, newspaper, media, retail, IT, and then yes, technology companies. So so diversified experience. Okay, somebody was on. Okay, yes, thanks. So first panelist, Sanjukta Sarkar, Director HR Global Engineering Center and India Country Head, Collins Aerospace. Raju Vellur, great friend of mine, Head HR, Deccan Herald, which is also known as a Mysore Printing, if I'm not wrong. Manmeet Kaur Tandon, Senior HR BP, Global Sourcing, H&M and India Country HR Head. Welcome. Then Gayatri Mohan, Regional Lead Employee Relationship, APJ, and HR Compliances Officer from SAP. So these are the panelists for second panel, and this will be moderated by none other than dear friend, HR leader, known for a future of work topic in the industries, HR community with love and pride call him as a Agi, okay? But his name is Augustus Azaria. He's the VP Employee and Labor Relation, APMEA, which is I think Middle East Asia as well. Region, Kendrill and IBM subsidiary. Augustus, over to you.
Hey, Ashish, thank you for those very kind words and truly delighted to be here this afternoon. And I intently was following the first panel and all that they said. And I took some copious notes. Yes, it's been a wonderful afternoon. And for those of you who are going to be on a listen-only mode, I would encourage you to get yourself a cup of coffee and stay with us. And also, there is going to be time for us to interact towards the end of the session. So I have, like Ashish said, a panel that's cross-sectoral. And as we are going to bring some of our experiences, thoughts, and also the vision for the future of employee wellness. So is it the future of employee wellness? Or, in my opinion, I think it's the now of employee wellness, because the future is now. I strongly believe that. Okay. And so while we are in the now of employee wellness, I was thinking, why is there so much talk as well as action on this particular topic? All right. Or at least over the last few years. And I know pre-pandemic, we were doing this also, but post-pandemic, I suppose it gathered a lot of momentum, all right? And then it came onto the front burner. But is this new to us? The answer is no. When I look back, I said, no. I think right from the Industrial Revolution, there has been a focus on employee safety. Is that my echo or somebody is speaking?
Okay, Agi, continue. I'm just checking who's there.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
You know, making a.
If somebody wants to speak, we can bring them onto the panel.
No, that may not be the reason. Okay, please continue. Huh? I will check.
Okay. All right. So since the Industrial Revolution, there has been an emphasis on employee safety. And that emphasis on employee safety, became, factory safety protocols and guidelines. And then there became a regulatory requirement in terms of ensuring safety of employees, more because the unions started fighting for safety of workers. So it became a protocol, it became a regulation, and it was a must-have, all right? So as we were pushed to regulation, it also became like a check in the box. But pan to 2021, okay, due to this pandemic, this took a very strategic direction in a lot of organizations, including mine, all right? And why did it do that? Is because right from the emergence of big data, I remember in 2015, while I was working on certain projects, I was looking at how we can use predictive analytics, to let us know the well-being of our people, all right? And it was, of course, fraught with a lot of challenges. The first one of them being all this sensitive data, all this private data. Okay, how are we going to manage it and safeguard it? Okay, that was the primary thing. But again, there was also a business focus to it, right? And which said that, look, if we had a healthy workforce, we have a positive work culture. And if people do not know what health is about, it's about creating awareness and providing it to them. Then, of course, for those of us who are, for us, it's a business consideration, right? Because healthy employees bring in a greater level of engagement to the organization, and therefore greater productivity and therefore greater profits. So remember, this also makes strong business sense. So this is not relegated to a CSR activity or something which is a nice to have. It's a must have today, all right? Then came the workforce. Now, how do we go about this workforce? And should we go and say, hey, look, you're susceptible to a particular comorbidity. You're susceptible to something. And then we have this annual negotiation with our insurance providers, where we look at, what are pre-existing conditions and people with comorbidities, how many deaths we had, how many hospitalizations. And that kind of comes down to what is the premium that you have to pay. So if I had a healthier workforce, wouldn't I be able to drive down my insurance costs, provided I know how to safeguard data integrity and use that data in a very ethical manner. Okay, so remember, there's a lot of takeaways for us out here. So the wellness across the enterprise is what we are looking at today, but also supply chain. If our suppliers are also not well enough to deliver, we're not going to fulfill our commitments to the market. So wellness doesn't just doesn't happen with the organization, but it happens with the entire supply chain. All right. Only then is it going to be effective. Only then are we going to see those productivity gains, all right? Then comes social responsibility also, all right? So whoever it is, we also have a social responsibility to ensure that we plug in that aspect to our well-being initiatives as far as our supply chain goes. Last point I wanted to also make here is there is something called the duty of care. An employer has a duty to care for their employees. And what is that? That could have come across as, an ergonomic chair during the work from home, or enabling our people, giving them internet, giving them a free vaccination for them and families, and so many other things. Okay, basically we were equipping them and enabling them to perform their duties. All right, that is a very, very important aspect called the employer's duty of care. Okay, so this is something a lot of employers continue to follow. And I think the duty of care needs to now be taken to a next level. Okay, whether it's equipping our people, whether it is vaccination, internet, UPS, headphones, or any of it, the duty of care is a very important aspect that we have to focus as far as wellness agenda goes. And finally, we have our wonderful panelists here. Okay, we have Gayatri Mahesh from the IT sector. She's from SAP. You must have seen on the flyer. Then there is Rajesh Munjal, startup and in the healthcare space or the wellness space. We have retail and e-commerce with Manmeet Tandon out there, and media. Rajiv Vellore is out here, and he's going to also share how the newsroom actually went home. Okay, and finally we have Sanjukta, and Sanjukta is from Collins Aerospace, and she will share with us some of her experiences and thoughts on the subject. But before that, each of them come with such rich experience. So all our panelists have about 3 minutes for their opening statements. And we are going to be starting in the same order that I announced you. So that's Gayatri Mahesh there for you.
Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Good evening and happy to be part of this panel discussion. Hello to my other fellow panelists as well. So, Augie, I'm Gayatri Mohan from SAP. And just want to also let you know that apart from the employee relations as a duty, I'm also the health ambassador for SAP. So it's very interesting to know that SAP has got a pillar called the people sustainability to take care of the health and well-being of our employees. So my responsibility is actually to conceptualize, implement, and also to redefine the health and well-being initiatives. So as an opening statement, I would say that health and well-being, as you would have heard by now, was always at the importance or in the agenda for SAP. So there will be discussion around health and well-being during the leadership meetings and all. But what we saw post-COVID was that the importance kind of quadrupled. And then right now what we are focusing is to enable the remote working in a much more healthier and well-being aspect. For me, I would say that when I was evaluating a health app, a wellness app for our employees, there were other dimensions that got added, which gave me kind of an assessment about my overall health, physical, mental, emotional, even financial and spiritual. So the health as a concept is also getting redefined by adding a lot of dimensions to it. And it's also interesting to know how we are going to extrapolate this well-being to our large scale of employees, especially in a remote working environment. So at SAP, what we did was we frequently listened to our employees and to the managers to understand if you're on the right track and what is that they need. So we have the remote working, pulse checks done on SAP Qualtrics, and that will help us to come up with intelligence-driven action or intervention. So Ogi mentioned about the importance of data, ethical usage of data here as well. With that, what we did was we wanted them to be enabled with a one-stop resource for all related, information related to health and well-being, whether it is COVID, whether it is remote working, whether it is the mental health situation, reporting to work. We also came up with our own app, which is called the Apne app. The other dimension or the other pillar we wanted to further strengthen was with respect to the leaders and managers. And it was an overwhelming response from all the leaders across the board and all over the country, wherein they came up and said that we are committed to the health and well-being of our employees. We came up with customized manager response toolkit because we understood that the need of the hour was to come up with a empathetic, listening toolkit, or leading the remote teams, or dealing with pressure, right? When like 50% of the team is, down with COVID, and how to keep the team motivated, and also how to do the self-care thing. The other pillar, what we wanted to also, take care was with respect to the process and policies, wherein we wanted to break the taboo on the mental, well-being, and we added mental health as one of the leave category itself, so that a baby step taken, so that people could, use that for, taking off the time off, saying that, yes, I'm not maybe in the right frame of mind now, so I need the time off. And we also came out, looked into the trend analysis during the time when we found that a lot of cases are getting reported on domestic violence. So SAP in India came up with a policy to support employees and families. And what happened next took us by surprise, because we got an overwhelming response. It was gender agnostic as well. And then the number of cases or the help requests that came in was like inexplicable. We thought that family, the definition needs to be relooked, and we gave the employees the flexibility to go with a family care leave. Even, your pet could be defined as a family member. So that was also taken care of. What strengthened the whole initiative, right? What we are trying to do was the support channel, which got established. So like many other companies, we also went up with a vendor. We, strengthened the vendor support, whether it's counseling for employees' families. But there was a group of employees who came forward to provide this support, saying that, okay, we have gone through similar situation, whether it is a COVID situation, whether it's a domestic violence, whether it was a mental trauma, and they wanted to come forward and extend this support to other fellow colleagues as well. So this peer learning experience is what we leveraged further. And like other companies, I heard the first panel also mention about the ambulance service, the teleconsultation, the oximeter kit, the COVID kit, and all of that we provided. And again, we also went one step ahead to take care of the community, wherein many employees were interested to take care of or take part in the community service as well. While the whole thing was happening, the remote working is nothing new. But then we also found that when it is becoming a norm, the question was about the trust that is exhibited by both parties, right? The manager and the employees. So taking clue from that, we started doing a lot on the psychological safety workshop, bringing the teams together, establishing the expectation, and helping them to, move forward in a much more amicable manner. Um, Infusing positivity was a need of the hour, because, as you agree with me, lots of WhatsApp messages on the negative communication around COVID, and then it kind of drains your energy. So we wanted to bring in a little bit of pep talk to our employees, to the families. So we got in our employees to come and speak about, how they were able to, come out of the COVID situation positively, what they were able to do, and a little bit around the team lens, some fun Fridays and some appreciate wall, where they were given an opportunity to help each other. From a board perspective, we had a board sponsored one day off to take care of our mental well-being, rejuvenate, and come back to work. So that was something which everybody enjoyed, that time off. And then, so I would say that, okay, so these are a couple of things. I'm sure that, while we speak, I could share a lot more data or a lot more experiences about it. But to start with, this is what I want to leave from an SAP perspective.
Thank you, Gayatri. Rajesh, your 3 minutes.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you so much. I think being in the corporate life for more than 20 plus years into different role and handling the large teams of some 8,000 odd people, not all category, I think. And now on the other side of it, basically, which is on the partner side of it, or wellness partner side of it, basically, we've seen that there is a switch basically which has happened in last 16, 18 months, how we used to look at the employee well-being. I think that's something basically which has been there. Most important is what we have understood more about well-being is that community. We have seen that people selflessly has come out and supported in this time, right? Everybody, we have not seen that you have some Twitter, especially for those accounts that have been created, or Facebook groups has been created, or WhatsApp group has been created, and all those kind of a thing. I think more of empathy has come in last 16, 18 months in this. And more important from that is that we are more becoming givers than the takers. That is something basically which is coming, and I wish that should go a long way. This is something basically which I learned, and I think As in coming on this side of it, basically on the wellness partner side of it or wellness platform which we have built is also built in that community way, wherein that you're not feeling alone in this journey. You're kind of being supported by others in each and every path, each and every step which you take it. I think that is something basically which I'd say if we drive through a community model, wherein that if we have somebody hand holding others, and this journey become really positive and quicker than if we are fighting it alone. That's what I think from my side.
Thank you, Rajesh. Let me invite Manmeet Tandon.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks, first of all, to Ashish and to Augie for giving me this opportunity. And perhaps I think where I see adding a little bit of benefit or advantage to this conversation is by highlighting some of the things which were potentially unique to our setup of H&M, as most of the practices which my fellow panelists have mentioned are very, very similar to what we have also done. So first, a brief introduction about myself. I'm Manmeet, and I am responsible for HR, which includes the full spectrum of employee life cycle. I'm responsible for H&M India operations as well as the global operations. And something that kind of stands out when it comes to retail and the supply chain sector, I think employee wellness sort of took a very different or a very strategic turn for us in the last 18 months. The reason being that while as an employer or a conscious employer, the employee wellness and well-being was not a new subject to us. And I was also listening into some of the conversation of the previous panel. It kind of got a very strategic importance as far as our business risk mitigation was concerned. So we had seen how our supply chain got impacted. We also got to see how it impacts the kind of business model that we had. So since H&M pans out in offline as well as online model, it had very different connotation or an impact with respect to our business model. And I think digitalization or automation in general added up to that. So I would say that it was just not the pandemic. It was a double disruption for us because automation also brought in a lot of significant changes or rather a transformation in itself to further add. While having said that, I think most of the things about employee wellness, which pans out from doctor consultations to wellness leaves to EAP empanelments, were very much part of what we always used to do as an employer. What kind of added up was the geographic relevance of these wellness initiatives across the world. As a matter of fact, most of our employee workforce is also an expat workforce. And what we realized during this pandemic was how local legislations in different countries of our operations were not so conducive to the expat workforce that we had in those locations. So there were different sort of connotations and different perspectives to employers for us. When it comes to supply chain, there was a huge disruption, as we know, of course, from a lot of macroeconomic factors, but also that reduced operations during the last 18 months had a significant impact on our business operations and continuity as well. So for us, the whole ecosystem had been almost paralyzed. And then as a conscious employer, we raised this bar from on employee wellness to also include our suppliers, our business partners, the communities which we have an influence on, and of course investors. So there was a whole lot of strategic importance to this topic for as far as we were concerned. It also is a subject which took a lot of attention from the leadership team. It's a topic which gains a lot of relevance in our board meetings. It's a topic which gets reported in our annual sustainability commitments and also in our various leadership forums. So in a nutshell, I would say that employee wellness and well-being for us is not a part of an ongoing journey. It was something that any which ways panned out to become a lot more important. And we understood what kind of role a brand has in bringing this topic across different dimensions of our ecosystem. So we moved a lot away from the employee-centric discussions, but also included a lot of our extended business. Thank you, Augie.
Thank you, Manmeet. You covered a lot, so my leading questions would be around the ecosystem that you were talking about, which you embraced, as far as wellness goes. Thanks. So we have Rajiv Velord from media, Deccan Herald, the Printers, Mysore, Bangalore. Rajiv.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Ashish, for this opportunity to share some of my experiences. Yeah. The worst hit industry probably was media, because entire our bread and butter is dependent on the circulation, and a lot of things got circulated everywhere through WhatsApp. WhatsApp University played a lot of role in reducing the circulation of newspapers. Also, the reporters, photographers, everybody had to be on the spot to report what's happening there. And during the pandemic, it was so tough. Luckily for us, the government supported, putting the tag that frontline workers to the media people, and then we could get vaccinated first. So that really helped a lot. Most important thing, I would like to put into context was the media industry works in a very, very different, time cycle. Yeah, if anybody has to read a newspaper morning 6:30, typically the newspaper has to be delivered to the spot where it is picked up, and the delivery starts by about 4:35 o'clock. That typically means that 2:30 in the morning, the first newspaper has to drop down from the machines. And if you work back, everything starts. The office starts buzzing from 5 o'clock in the evening to 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then the printing actually starts. This the time cycle difference played a lot of role in terms of creating enough problems for us in terms of managing this pandemic. It really taught us only one thing, well-being, wellness, these all cannot be taken for granted. As much as there is responsibility of the individual, there is a huge amount of responsibility for the organization also. And we could realize that very, very early, even during the first wave itself, because everything had stopped except for the media. We had a lot of tough times. So, what we did was we put in an emergency response team, which was responsible for having a connect. We made batches, and then each batch would work in a different week, so that we kept few people away from. If at all something happens, at least there was one more batch which was ready to work. Having said that, it was not easy again. We had to look at options of working from home. Yeah, it was not easy at all. Where Deccan Herald being a 75-year-old organization, where it typically works like a government organization, where everything is on the desk. People come in, join in, right? Everything happens in the office. We had a lot of tough time in terms of trying to convince ourselves that work from home is possible. Added to that was the technologies that we'll have to plug in to ensure that the editors, the reporters, all our systems would work very well during the work from home situation. Bandwidth issues, multiple issues were there. After overcoming all these issues, finally, over a period of time, we have come to a stage where we could look at a different model of working. I think, it taught us really a very good lesson in terms of looking at wellness in a very, very different eyesight. That's the context of what I was talking about. Only one thing that a couple of things I want to add. going by my experience, wellness or well-being cannot be looked at in short term. It's impossible. Yeah, it is a long-term goal. We all have to understand that, and it's very clear that short-term goals can be there only to induce and ensure that you get those motivations to clear those long-term goals. But employee well-being is definitely is a long-term goal. You cannot have short-sightedness in terms of creating one program here, one program there, and then thinking that everything will work fine. It will not. There has to be a broad spectrum of things that needs to be done, and we are still evaluating few platforms where we can look at it. The one more important thing that we faced was during the work from home and the pandemic period was the kind of stress these journalists and photographers were going through. There was a huge amount of fear, but still, they had to work. They didn't had a choice. So psychological issues, mental wellness issues came up, to an enormous extent. So what we did was we tied up with a few agencies where the counseling was very important for us, and the organization covered everything out of it. Yeah? Mental wellness was a huge issue with the journalists. Even now, we are facing few issues, which though it is very minimal, but still we are facing a lot of issues. One more thing, which also
Rajiv,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you with the specificities in terms of
Sure.
initiatives, if you don't mind. I'll move to the next panelist. Thank you so much. There's a lot in terms of what you said and in the media space. So let me go and invite Sanjukta Sarkar from Collins Aerospace. Sanjukta, stage is yours.
Thank you, Augustus. Really happy to be here. Thank you for making me part of this panel. I think Rajiv and I can compete about which was the most or the worst affected industry. I come from aerospace, and overnight everyone stopped flying. So you can imagine how the industry felt. So we were looking at wellness again from two aspects. People, obviously COVID was one, and there was this panic and stress and anxiety about people's jobs and work, and so mental health and physical health. So just to let you know what Collins is all about in India, we have two parts to the organization. We have a large manufacturing setup, 7 factories in India, and we have engineering R&D centers in India. So we have two very different sets of population, one which is working through pandemic and coming to office every day, and one which is pretty much 100% remote since the pandemic hit. And thereby, I think similar to Rajiv's experience, thereby we had to really kind of one size fits all doesn't work for us. So we really had to pivot in terms of what does wellness mean for our manufacturing staff, and what does wellness mean for our remote engineering staff who are not even now in their base locations, but have moved across India. So from a wellness perspective, I think we did all that we could do pretty much. I think most organizations did the ambulance, the COVID coverage insurance. We topped it up for families, family members, employees. We bought a new insurance policy just for COVID. But what made me really warm and fuzzy was there was an employee help desk, actually created, conceptualized by our employees across the organization. And they were a 24/7 help desk to help our employees and their family members scout for blood, hospital beds, medicines, ambulance, and everything they needed across India. And this was not just restricted to our base locations, but really, really hinterlands of the, northeastern part of the country, or really back of the beyond. People have moved to different locations across the country. And that, I think, really worked well in just bringing the organization together and rallying for each other from a support perspective. For the factories, we completely had to look at it differently. So we had to increase the fleet of our transportation, as an example. People had to be social distanced right from the time they are picked up from home. So we doubled the fleet of our buses, and we ensured that people were socially distanced. Obviously, workspaces had to be reconfigured, which is not easy for a factory setup, but workspaces had to be reconfigured in large cafeteria seating had to be enlarged and all of that. But fundamentally, through all this, what was at the heart of it was our employee assistance program and mental health and well-being, which I think a lot of us spoke about. India has always felt mental health being a taboo subject, and I really think mental health has made some strides during this COVID period, but I still think we are way behind in terms of accepting and even identifying mental health in our colleagues. I mean, we identify and then we kind of keep quiet about it because we don't know how that person's going to feel, or we don't know whether we are being judgmental or things like that. And even though we spent so much time and effort investing in educating managers in, grief, having grief counselors available, having various mental counselors for relationship, for stress, for domestic violence, and all of that available to the employees and their families free of cost, I still didn't see as much of an uptick as I would have liked to in terms of people reaching out and really, grabbing those opportunities. So we are stressing a lot on removing the taboo from mental health. And I think that's something as an industry and as a country, we need to step up our efforts on significantly. Other than that, we did a lot of engagement. I think some people, I saw some chat noise about, is it good to take off during the end of the month? Is it good to take off every day, etc. I think the two things we introduced on a day-to-day basis was lunch breaks, very sacrosanct. Everyone blocks their calendar for lunch breaks. And the second one was Zoom-free Fridays. We are so Zoom fatigued today. I'm part of a book club which meets on Zoom now, and I don't want to be part of that book club anymore because we meet on Zoom. Because I do so many Zoom meetings throughout the day. So we try to do things which take people away and give some mental space to people. We also introduce mandatory time off. So combined with all the festivals in India, we forced closure of our companies over a week so that people just take a break. And sometimes you have to force closure through these pandemic because people are just not taking time off because they don't know what to do with their time off. And so we really forced people to, even if they are just staycationing and staying at home and vacationing, they just needed to take that time off. So a lot of emphasis on that. And some focus on engagement for the family members. So we ran sports events virtually. We ran, children's shows and children's classes online for our employees' children, for for engaging their family members and so on and so forth. So I think like everyone said, wellness has always been on everyone's mind, but this pandemic has just super accelerated our focus and also the different dimensions of wellness, which we have now realized is beyond just physical. So that's it from me, Augustus.
Thank you, Sanjukta. Various points you have made, and yes, I'm going to have some leading comments on that. And I just wanted to very quickly hear, I can hear an echo. Am I audible? Okay, thank you. So what happened 18 months back, just to quickly, recap, we had this work from home and everyone said, okay, the office came home, and then we started officializing the home, all right? Because office was the new house guest. And therefore, what should you do if you're a new house guest? You put on your best behavior, and then you don't overshoot your time as a guest, right? Then you become a pain, all right? Unwanted guest. So what happened now is that the office, typically, within quotes, is becoming an unwanted guest in the house if we've not handled that well. And why is because we have a multi-generational home, a family, right? There are grandparents, there are parents, there are children, and in a home, with so much of movement, emotions are definitely going to flare. All right. Everybody is fighting for that thin bandwidth that you have. and for that particular couch and for that particular seat at the home where you get a strong signal. There are various things that are happening. And just when you are having that very important call with your manager or with your client, that's when, Amazon and Flipkart decide to deliver a parcel to you, and there is this incessant ringing of the bell, right? And what do we need to do? We need to be more kind to people, at least folks on the other side. Yes, you're at home. I understand that the cooker whistle is going, or the mixie is going, or there is somebody at the door. So it was a time for us to accept each other in the kind of situation that we were in this particular storm. So today, while we are looking at a hybrid workforce and while we are looking at wellness, we need to very clearly understand that our workforce is typically not here. And in a few years from now, we will not have the workforce on our rolls because they will be gig, they will be liquid, they're going to be all over. So the wellness aspect is right there now to look at what are the workforce types that we are looking at. Okay, so some of the notes that I got out here, was getting this wellness stuff. You should have the board's, the employer's skin in the game. That means you get the board to agree to it. And Gayatri, you made that mention. Let me give you a couple minutes to tell us how you got this onto center stage, because unless you have a corporate sponsor to your program or policy, it's not going to work, right? So let's hear the SAP story, Gayatri, on the board sponsor.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Yogi, for that. So I would say that what we did was data definitely spoke for ourselves, right? The second pandemic hit us so badly. And then the business also started seeing the impact when 50% of the population were out and not available for work. And people who were available for work had to do like triple the amount of work for the absentees as well. So what we tried to convince our corporate leaders was that we need some kind of time off, or we need to have some kind understanding of the business disruption that's going to happen. So what we did was we reconvened as a group, and then we started looking at the most strategic, the deliverables we need to do for the 6 months, 3 months, or for the next 1 year. And then we try to understand if there is a 10% population, 50% population, how we're going to manage that. So that message went across to the leaders, and they were much convinced and they were quite empathetic about the situation. Needless to say that the leadership, the local leadership team was quite supportive of it, and they were willing to stand up for the employees in India and then say that, okay, I'm there to support them. And if there is something that goes wrong, then I'm there to support the entire team. So that was a strong message that came in. Another positive thing that happened with us is that the direct message from the CEO saying that it's okay, we understand that you're going through a difficult situation personally as well as professionally. So keep your work in the back burner and focus on your health and well-being. So that's what we want you to focus on. So that strong leadership message that came consistently from different parts of the world gave us the confidence to move forward. What we also did proactively was, okay, we tried to take care of the critical roles and started doing some business continuity planning. And we were surprised, shocked, and amazed to see the people, right, the colleagues outside of the country putting their hands up saying that I'll be your backup in case you're off work for a couple of weeks or you need to cater to a personal emergency. So these are a couple of things what we have done proactively from a leadership commitment perspective. And then I would say that that worked beautifully for us.
Thank you so much, Gayatri. You really hit the nail on the head, and having our leaders to very clearly communicate that message and having that executive sponsorship is so important. And for all of us HR folks on this call, we see many AI companies coming up with health and wellness solutions, right? And we're wondering who is good, what is it that I actually need. All right. And, Rajesh was talking about, predicting, somebody who could be prone to a particular comorbidity, be it diabetes or whatever. Now, all this is big data. All right. And where does this all come? It comes to the vendor, or it goes to somewhere where you're going to process it. Then there's GDPR in Europe. Okay. And something similar in India. Now, given all this, how do we ensure that the data that they are getting out of our people is safe and secure? And what are those things that HR leaders need to look at? 4-5 high-level points in terms of identifying the right vendor for an AI-based wellness platform. Rajesh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think very, very valid point. I think there is a lot of data which is being captured through various AI or predictive modeling. The most important part and the first and foremost is basically is a personal data, right? It's an individual personal data. And report or anything which is being given or shared, it's not it's a general thing. It is not something basically which is coming as okay, employee or something of that kind, right? It is something basically which is a kind of your dashboard or a health scorecard or a company health kind of a thing which is there. The most important thing is that consent of the employee, that yes. And second thing is that when it is a consent also, second thing is important is basically whether you are willing to share the data or you would like to see the report yourself. That's all. You are not willing to share your name, number or anything. You just want to share that, okay, the organization is getting some health checkups done, right? Based on those health checkup, I don't want to give my name, detail or anything. But yes, as an overall organization, it is important that, okay, I will be running that program. Because it is important that, okay, which program an organization should run for an employee, right? Somebody also asked the question, is there any difference between engagement and wellness, right? Wellness is what? Wellness is basically preventive care, which you are actually taking care of your employees. And how can you do that? Through an engagement to the wellness, not wellness as directly. What we have seen in last 16, 18 months is basically that most of the ad hocism kind of a thing, okay, let's do because we are seeing that the people are having anxiety issue, let's do a wellness or a emotional wellness camps, or we do a health checkup camps and other things. I think it is important for any organization to look at the entire ecosystem. And for that, data plays a very, very critical role. Unless you have the data, you will not be able to do any kind of a program for the organization. But yes, looking at what is being shareable, what is not being shareable, how this data has to be looked at. All these things are very, very critical, and we must be taking one consent from the employee. And then second is basically about this personalization is only for him, not for the entire organization. Personalization is you have a dashboard. Based on those dashboards, you are actually able to figure out that, okay, I run a diabetes care program, or I run a cardio program, or I run a fitness class, or I run a yoga class, or something of that kind, right? But you know that 40% of my employees are going to suffer from diabetes maybe 3 months or 6 months down the line because they are on the borderline. They run something for diabetes, or for that matter, cardio problem, for that matter, maybe hypertension. So all those kind of a thing, data plays a critical role. At the end of the day, to decide any kind of a program, we even for that we talk about mental wellness, right? That has been taboo for very, very long time. But now people have started speaking. They are coming up openly that I have a problem, right? And anybody, it's not something basically which is to me or to anybody else. It can be to anybody. We might be ignoring it for a long time till the time it becomes big. It is important to accept that and take care of that and improve on that. I think that is something basically which is there. And as far as partner or vendor or anybody from that point of view is concerned, it is important to look at the background of people. It is important that how your data is being looked at, where it is being stored on this, what are the kind of things basically which how they have been storing the data and all these things. That's something, and also the compliances, whether ISO compliance or GDPR compliance and all these things are very, very critical and important to look at before you finalize any partner or vendor.
Thank you, Rajesh. Taking a point from there, if I were to do an assessment of what would be the right AI wellness tool for me, I would take your dashboard, and then I would make a comparison with my engagement scores. And then I would also look at what was my bottom line that year. Because if truly I had a well-being, and a workforce that was well enough, it should reflect on my borderline. Okay. Absolutely. So that's when I would probably cut a check for you if I was going to buy a product, right? Okay, right. Then The other panelist we have, is Manmeet. And while we were talking yesterday, I said, look, first of all, retail sector slumped overnight, just like aerospace and aviation, right? And therefore, their supply chain also suffered. And but they came back. It got revived because of e-commerce, all right? And therefore, I wanted Manmeet to share with us that journey, because we want to see typically the business impact and how you picked up the business out there. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you for that question. I think one, that it is an extremely important question, because I think the answer to this lies beyond HR. I would say, I think it's firstly a question that comes on the CEO's table and then kind of goes out across to the entire leadership team of how, in this highly disruptive world, do we basically address this kind of a situation without, of course, compromising on the obvious, because I think costs became a huge factor as well, because no employee wellness or well-being initiative comes without a cost. And when I was describing in my opening speech that this kind of applied outside of the employee paradigm for us, so that again is an important consideration of how, when you are in an environment where you have to reduce cost for being operationally viable, you also have to see what are those investments where you would like to invest from a future point of view to make yourself, of course, sustainable. So there were, of course, important considerations when it came to, like I mentioned, automation of the online business, because we aren't present in, of course, all the countries where offline stores were. So it was also a huge trade-off with respect to stores shutting down versus the online model picking up at the same time. When it comes to employees, I think the similar kind of initiatives probably helped in both the places, whether we were focusing on well-being, physical or mental. There wasn't much of a difference in the spectrum of our offerings as an employer. But I think fundamentally what changed also was our understanding of what are the enablers for us as an organization, be it the logistics, be it the external supply chain that serves to our business from the outside, or be it then our other partners. So we kind of strongly partnered with our this extended ecosystem in engaging their workforce also towards raise their awareness levels. I think when it comes to India, as just as an example, the rate of vaccination wasn't uniform across. We know about this huge vaccination inequity that exists across the world. But I think if we kind of localize this topic and see what does it mean for us, a lot of our workforce in the supply chains are not interested to get vaccinated unless and until it's a sort of a carrot and a stick approach that applies here. So we partnered with a lot of our suppliers, both in our back-end supply chain as well as in the forefront with the logistics, because logistics plays a huge role in online business. So we played as a sort of a progressive employer when it comes to building awareness on the importance of these. Vaccination, of course, came much later into the pandemic, and I can safely assume its effects are still coming and would essentially come as we go on further in the future months. But what we did also in preparation of opening up our businesses was to then provide for the medical supplies, was to provide for, of course, the COVID care center. So a lot of our factories provided as building grounds for those COVID care centers. Much on the CSR side was also then the provision of the medical supply. So for example, in garment, you have the same supply chain which can also cater to providing PPEs or the masks. So we also use opportunity to then become the forefront suppliers to our other extended partners, so that within the same ecosystem we can circulate the demand and the supply. So if there is a certain shortfall in one part of our business on medical supplies or PPEs or masks, then the other part of our supply chain caters to that. So there was a lot of circulation of those kind of essential medical needs. And of course, when it comes to ramping up the digital operation, that became a huge focus. So a lot of our heightened focus from shifting our as-is business model to the future business model also went, and their educating employees on the importance of wellness was also ramped up, so that people understand what is it. One of the critical factors that we were basically facing was how employees shift their mindset from working digitally, because when you are in a product facing business, everything kind of falls apart when you're not able to go to offices, when you're not able to see your samples, when you're not able to ship the way you used to ship. So a lot of our things kind of were also in terms of creating our workforce on that kind of a mindset to become more agile in terms of having business continuity run as it should be running in this time. So that, as a sum up, was on how we, of course, scaled up from what we were originally doing as a conscious employer to then maintaining business continuity in this kind of a disruptive scenario.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Manmeet. It's always, is great to hear, how from a retail shop format, transitioned overnight to, an online retailing format, and especially at a time when people are not going out of the home, when we are wearing shorts and taking the calls, sorry, that's the reality of it, right? And therefore, where are we going to buy the clothes? If I buy, where am I going to wear it and go, right? So I think marketing also played a huge role out there, right? In terms of, what were those work from home type of clothes and things like that. I think it was great, in terms of the journey that the retail sector took. Thank you so much, Manmeet. Great work out there. And with that, we have Rajiv. Rajiv, you had a point to make, as you had also moved your newsroom to homes and, disrupted homes and families, so to say. So do share with us, and then I will have Sanjukta come on after you. Thanks.
Yeah, it was a large mindset that we need to, we had to create, that it's possible for the newsroom to work from different areas of Bangalore and parts of Karnataka as well. Everybody, we had to put in a system in place where everybody can file in their reports. In fact, we also started accepting WhatsApp reports. They can just WhatsApp the report and somebody will file it for you. That was one. And we had to say very clearly, it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And we had to move away from one big thing that all corporates look at. The focus is on performance here on a daily basis. For a news reporter, it is a daily performance which matters a lot. So we had to say that it's okay to have a bad day. Take it easy. It took some time to sink that in with people, and our technology platform played a really good role in terms of enabling our people to move from office to work from wherever they are.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Rajiv. So let me go to Sanjukta. Sanjukta, from a Collins perspective and also your experience, we said aerospace and its impacted employees, your move to a hybrid work environment. Are we going to be in that era where, there will be a cabin announcement as we are flying, and then the pilot says, "Hi, I'm your captain speaking and I'm working from home"?
I really hope not. But yes, so at least Collins is, like I said, part remote and part on-site. So manufacturing, unfortunately, we don't have a choice but to be on-site. But engineering, we haven't brought our employees back yet. We are 100% remote at this point in time. People are all over the country, not working out of the base location. In fact, we took a dipstick recently, and 60% of our employees are not in Bangalore and Hyderabad, which is where we are located. So people have just spread themselves out thin in the country. And I think some of you made a really important point. The mindset shift the managers had to make from, and by the way, we are a, hypersensitive data privacy, data, IP laws organization, because we are in the aviation industry. And hence we pivoted from a largely desktop at office environment and culture to overnight remote environment. And that also meant mindset shift for managers to make from moving to have employees right next to them to trusting employees who they don't even know where they are at this point in time. So it's been a journey. We are going to, in the future, continue a hybrid model. We have opened our eyes to the fact that aviation can also work hybrid and does not necessarily have to be in office. And hence we are, deliberating on remote and on-site model going forward, and give the flexibility to employees as much as possible so that they don't have to really get into formal clothes and come into office like the previous years.
Great. Thank you so much, Sanjukta. I think we got the richness from all of our panelists. They've gone through a lot, and HR as a function, I think, definitely needs a pat on the back, because I think we brought the business back to where it should be, and set it on a trajectory from where it's very hard to look behind. So I think it's a great time for HR people and the HR function, which is now at the table. We have our seat at the table, and we shouldn't let go of it. And the great work that we have done is phenomenal indeed. So with that, quickly to summarize, I think it makes business sense to have wellness. It adds to the organization's brand, because you want to be seen as a caring company, as a kind company, and also to attract the right talent. And for all your shareholders, your stakeholders respect you for that. Okay, and the products that we deliver, reflect our commitment to our people, and therefore I think that's a great thing that wellness is going to bring to us. And needless to say, we definitely need AI-enabled tools to get us onto that journey, but with the right controls and with the right compliance to regulatory mechanisms. So with that, thank you so much, my dear friends. I enjoyed moderating this discussion, and let me hand it over to Ashish. Thanks.
Thank you, Agi. So yes, it's 5 o'clock already, so people are logging off. So I won't take much time. Thanks all the panelists, Manmeet, Gayatri, Sanjukta, Rajiv, and great moderation by Agustis and Rajesh. Thanks for supporting, share your views. Like Sanjukta was saying about, and you also touch upon, Augustine, aeroplane not flying. So it reminds me the future of work statement. That driverless car will be flying, right? And it is the time when aeroplane is not flying, right? So there are many things which are happening and all, and obviously, like, the digitalization, the way it is happening, tomorrow we will have wearable devices. You just wear it, you get to know everything. That's how it is going to happen. Inbuilt chip will be there in the human being, and then entire dashboard will be there, Rajesh. Okay, how somebody's wellness and well-being. Augustine, can we have a closing remark? Then we'll just wind up.
From the panelists?
Yeah, including you.
Oh yeah. So we'll go with the same order. So
yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm taking some more of your time. Gayatri, we'll start from you. Let's say 30 seconds to a minute. Closing remarks.
Thanks a lot. I would say that one greatest lesson learned during pandemic is the resilience of each one of us. And then I would urge to take part in such kind of panel discussions. Let's keep learning from each other. Let's ask for help, and let's support each other. So that's the closing remark from my side. And thank you so much. Feeling privileged to be part of today's panel discussion.
Rajesh.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful having a discussion with the fellow panelists. And I just wanted to say one thing, that we have to make wellness as a part of the process, not as a transactional thing. I think if we make it as a part of employee life cycle in the organization, that will go a long way, and we will be having been very, very good position as well as productivity and the efficiency and efficacy of all these things. I think that's what I would like to convey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rajiv, you put up your hand. Would you like to go before Manmeet?
So that was a clap for what Gayatri was saying.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Manmeet?
Yep. My closing remark would be, I think that yes, it is a little unfortunate that the pandemic hit us, and it kind of accelerated these kind of topics that are happening across the world and in HR fraternity, and of course on business fraternities as well. I think, but we need to raise the bar a little bit. Employee wellness and well-being, and these topics, these are things which are part and parcel of business operations and HR strategy, and we should not wait for opportunities like pandemic to teach us these important lessons. So for me it stands out as a strategic topic which should not really be put on the limelight because something hit us bad. It's more about embracing this and understanding that we are responsible employers, and we need to put these people agenda at the forefront.
Thank you, Manmeet. And Rajiv?
Yeah, thanks. I would, it is, like Manmeet was telling, it's really unfortunate that, we have to discuss well-being of employees on, multiple platforms, and every organization is discussing this, while this had to be the center focal point for every organization. Like I said earlier, as much as well-being is organizations' responsibility, it is individuals' responsibility to take care of themselves. One short thing that I would like to advise everybody is journaling is a great tool. Yeah, journaling not just what happened, but how did you feel when that happened. Yeah, over a period of time, if it is done properly, you will be able to connect your feelings and your emotions to what's happening, and thereby, you will be able to take care of yourself much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Sanjukta.
Yeah, I just have two quick points. One is, like Gayatri said, resilience. I think one big leadership trait which is emerging and we must look for is empathy. I think this has become one of the most important traits a leader needs to demonstrate today. And the second one I really want to talk about is it's all our responsibility. From, wellness is not just the organization's responsibility. We facilitate a lot of things, but it's all our responsibility. Ashish asked a question on the chat. How many of you have taken, your health checkup in the last few months? No one responded. I hope not because you're embarrassed to say that it was many years ago, but you just, you just thought about it. But really, all of us should focus on keeping ourselves healthy, fit, both in mind and in body.
Thank you. For me to close, while I say that, resilience, definitely what Gayatri said and which you echoed also, Sanjukta, resilience is something. And then, of course, managing by empathy, managing by compassion are two things that are going to drive the future of how our businesses are going to be run. And needless to say, there are two things that we need to have as far as wellness goes. One is the weighing scale. The other one is the inch tape. All right. Make sure this is